So this is our first class for SQL. So today we will be going to see the introduction part for this SQL, how the data is going to come, what is the definition of SQL, and with some examples, let us try to understand today's class. Okay. So we will be going to see about SQL. So what is the full form for SQL?
Structured query
It is
language.
Structure query
structured
language.
query language, right? So structured query language. Just a minute. Yeah. So it is structured query language. Also, we call this one as SQL. Okay, so any of the word you can use. Either you can use SQL or you can call SQL or you can call structured query language. So we have one more word, mostly many of you might be hearing about MySQL. Okay, so what is the difference between SQL and MySQL?
MySQL is Microsoft,
SQL
right?
is no, not like that. So MySQL is a kind of database system which will be going to have the backend system of storing the data and connecting with the query language. Okay, whereas SQL is not a database system; it is a query language. Okay, SQL is not a database system; it is a query language. Okay? Whereas MySQL system is our database system. So we have multiple database systems. We have Oracle, we have MySQL, we have MongoDB, we have Redis, HBase, like that multiple database systems and query languages are there. In our curriculum, we are going to use MySQL as a database system, MySQL as a database system, and SQL as a query language. Okay, so this is the difference between SQL and MySQL. Okay, we will be going to use MySQL Workbench. So where we will be going to see and store our data, upon which we will be going to write down SQL queries or else SQL queries to read the data from the database and understand the insights present inside the dataset. Okay, so first of all, this is the difference between SQL and a MySQL. So let us try to understand what is this SQL. Okay, what is this SQL? So SQL definition I can say about it is used to perform operations on the records that are stored in our database. Okay, SQL is used to perform operations used to perform operations on records that are stored in database in the database. So what are the operations when I say operations? Okay, when I say operations, what are those operations? Such as updating, okay, updating the records. We have inserting the records. We have deleting the records. We have creating and modifying the tables. Modifying the tables. All these kind of operations we can perform using our SQL on the records that are stored in the database. So what are all the kind of operations that we can perform? Updating the records, inserting the records, deleting the records, creating and modifying the tables, etc. So like that, many operations will be there. Using our SQL, we can perform upon the dataset. So what is meant by this records? So we have got this word multiple places. What is meant by record? So we have some terminology that we need to remember. So whenever I say record, it is nothing but a row. Okay? Row and record, both of them are same. Whenever I say column, we can also call it as field. Okay, when I say field, it is nothing but a column. When I say record, it is nothing but a row. We are going to deal with the data set which is in a structured format. Okay, it is going to have a structured format which is in the form of a tabular format. When I say structured format, it is nothing but a tabular format. A table will contain both rows and columns, right? Suppose, let me just show you one example. Suppose I'm opening one Excel sheet. Okay, so this is our Excel sheet. In this we can have both rows and columns. This is a column, right? And this is a row. So every time we store the data in a structured manner, it means that in a tabular format. So a tabular format, whenever you store your data, so whenever I say row, you can call it as a record. Whenever I say column, you can even call it as a field. So those are synonyms. So both of them you can use. So if I ask you, suppose if there is some table when I'm created, okay, suppose in this manner I have one some table is there. So in this, how many rows are there or how many records are there? How many columns are there or how many fields are there? We can identify, right? Suppose if these many rows are there, suppose in this you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 records are there and 3 columns are there. Like that, we will say if suppose a table is present in this particular space. Okay, we will see some example now. What are the kind of operations we can perform? But before that, we need to understand what is a record and what is a field. Okay, so row and record both of same, column and field both of these are same. So try to remember. Don't forget these because these are very basics. If you ask you how many records are there in your database or in your data set, if you say the columns count, it would be a huge blunder for a data analyst. If you make those kind of mistakes, it is very, very, very silly mistakes. So try to avoid that. So that's why I am suggesting you these many times. So remember this: row and record both of them are same, column and field are same. So that is regarding the records. So what is the operations that whatever you are going to perform on the rows that are stored in a database, we use SQL. So what are the kind of operations that we can perform? We can perform updating the records, inserting the records, deleting, creating, modifying the tables and all. So let us come with some kind of an order of how SQL can be used here. So every time, first of all, you need to have some table first. Okay, you need to have a table first. For that, you need to create a table. After creating a table, if you need to make any changes to the created table, you can able to modify the table. So once your table is created and it is ready, then you can start inserting the records into that table. You can add number of rows to that table. After adding the rows to the table, if there are any changes that you wanted to make, you can update those records. Okay, if suppose that record is of no use, you wanted to remove that record, you can use the deleting the records option. So like that, multiple operations that you can perform. Let me tell you with a small example. Okay, let us take an example of Aadhaar database. Okay, let us take an example of Aadhaar database. So Aadhaar, we all know it is a mandatory thing for every citizen in India. So if you want to prove as an Indian citizen, if must and should, you should have an Aadhaar card. So we know it is being introduced some years back. Earlier, from in the year of 1900s or in the year of 2000s, it is not there. So how when it started, how the database will be created for that particular thing? Let us try to understand now. So first of all, when the government has been started introducing the Aadhaar system. So what they will do, they will not write down the records on a paper, right? It won't be possible. For 100, as of now it is 140. So at the time, if you take 100 or 120 crores of people, writing down the details of 120 crores of people on a piece of paper, maintaining that record is a very silly thing to be said, right? Nowadays, earlier they might have been done in that manner, but now everything is digitalized. So how they have been stored these kind of these many people's Aadhaar database. So Aadhaar database in the sense it might contain your Aadhaar card number, your details like your name, your father name, your mother name, your age, that it can be date of birth. So your date of birth, from which city you are, what is the email ID of yours, what is the phone number of yours. After that, it can include so many things. It can be bank account details or PAN card. All of those are linked. But let us try to understand a simple and basic version of an Aadhaar system. Suppose whenever you want to store some details, you need to first have a table. So what is meant by this table? You need to define your table structure first. What is meant by this table structure or the physical structure of a table? You need to know how many columns you want to be there in the table first. So you need to mention those column names. Suppose I want to give these numbers. Suppose Aadhaar number. Okay, I wanted to give Aadhaar number in this manner, and then name of the citizen, and I will also add date of birth. Okay, I will also add the email ID and also mobile number. I will also add the mobile number. So in this manner, we have been created one table. So this is nothing but our table where I have defined my columns, right? I have defined my columns. I am going to store all the details for every citizen of all these details for every citizen in my Aadhaar database. So this is how, first of all, we need to create a table. This is nothing but creating a table. Okay. You need to first define what are all the columns you want in your data set, you want to store in your database, and some restrictions all will be there in the backend. Those all will discuss once we move to our main part. But we are trying to understand what are the kind of operations that we can perform, so we will understand on the high level. Okay, so in deep, how a column can be created, how a table can be created, what are all the things present inside a table when we are creating the syntax, those all kind of things the going forward classes we discuss. But as of now, let us try to understand on the high level of operations that we can perform using SQL. So this is the first thing, we have been created our table. Let us say we created the table and we have been submitted this one, but later you wanted to add one more thing. Okay, you want to make some change. Suppose let us say you don't want the email ID, or else you want to add one more column, like you want to add father's name. Okay, you want to add the father's name, or else you can you want to add the address. Okay, let us do address. You want to add the address column, so you need to modify the table, because earlier you only created the table with these many columns, but you want to add an extra column called address. So you are going to modify your table, so which means you are adding one new column. Modifying the table in the sense, it doesn't mean just adding a column. It means that suppose if there is any spelling mistake you made when you are creating this table with these columns earlier, suppose email ID spelling mistake you have been made, you need to correct it. That is nothing but modification only. Suppose some data type is a data type, that also modification of table only. So like that, modification of table is ready. So you can go ahead and insert your records, which is our next operation, like inserting the records. So how you can insert your records? So first of all, I will give some details of one of an citizen. So I will add some number. Okay, I will add some number. Okay, just random I'm giving. Okay, don't think this is some valid number. Some randomly I'm typing. So this person name is AST, date of 1998.com, and you can give some random mobile number and give some random address. So this is nothing but one record. This is nothing but one record. You have done one inserting a record. One record you inserted table. This is also can be done using our SQL. Okay. So how you can do and all we will see. But overall, this is one operation That is nothing but inserting the records into the table. Now you can insert as many records as you want according to your requirement. 20 suppose 10 1991, and some you can write @com, some mobile number you give, and some address. So like this, two records. One more record I will insert. So now if anybody asks you how many records are in this particular table, what you will say, there are only 3 records. Okay, there are 3 records in your table. What is this? This is nothing but your header. Now if I ask you how many fields are there in your table, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total 6 fields are there and 3 records are there. So this is nothing but your table. Where is this all about us here? Okay, this is nothing but your table. So here you have been first done with creating a table. You have modified the table by adding this address column, and you inserted these records. Now you created the table, fine. Now this particular person came to you after creating your table and telling that his mobile number is wrong. When you are creating the table, you entered the mobile number wrongly. Even you can see in the real time scenarios as well, a lot of people goes to other centers and making changes in their name. Some spelling mistakes might be there in their name. Some updating their phone numbers might be at the time when the Aadhaar is created. You might not be having your own personal mobile number, so you might have been given some of your father's mobile number like that. But nowadays everything, when you wanted to validate your Aadhaar, your OTP is coming to your mobile numbers. So everybody might be giving their own personal mobile number. So that is nothing but you are updating your Aadhaar with your own mobile number from other mobile number. So that might be an updating. So that is one real time scenario. So here this person came to you and this person wanted to update his mobile number. So there is some mistake in the mobile number. So in the last it needs to be, suppose 9 needs to be there, but instead of it came 0. So you want to make this update. So that can be also possible using our SQL. So I will go ahead, write down some query and make it as 9. Okay, so that is nothing but an update. Even date of birth update, email ID, address, name, date of birth, everything can be updated. Can I update other number? Just think about it in the real time
No,
scenarios and
it's
all.
a unique,
It's not
unique
possible.
one.
It's a unique Aadhaar
System
number.
generated.
We can't able, yes, correct. So we can't able to do that. But these are all your personal details. You can go ahead and make these changes. This is
But
one
what
that
if
is
we,
given by the government. Hmm? Hmm? Tell me,
even in Aadhaar card number, what if they did by mistakenly type different number?
is it possible? Just think about it. Is it possible that you get a wrong account number for your bank? In a bank, uh, are you able to get any wrong account number?
Mm,
Is it possible?
I'm, mm, okay.
It's not at all possible. Account numbers, even roll numbers in the might be roll numbers are generated by humans. They might make some mistake and give the same roll number to different students. But these kind of things, is anything have you seen when you are creating any PAN card? Are you got any wrong PAN card generated? PAN card number wrongly it is generated? It's not possible, right? So nowhere your Aadhaar number will go wrong in the Aadhaar based system. Suppose you are giving your details to some other reason, they might take it wrongly. Suppose you are giving your Aadhaar number for some purpose, okay? Uh, whatever might be the purpose, you have given your Aadhaar number. So they might enter it wrongly in from their end. At that time, you can go ahead and make that change. But in the Aadhaar database, it is not at all possible to get that wrong. See, when you are giving an account number, okay, you have bank account number, and you are sending that bank account number to some person to give you some money. Okay, they want to send you some money, so they were asking your account number. So you might make some mistake when you are sending the account number, or else the person who is taking your account number might take it wrongly, or else at the time when they are sending the money, they can enter the account number wrongly. But is it possible to get wrong account number from the bank directly? Hope you got your answer.
Yes.
That's the scenario. So that is not possible. So that is one thing that we mean to say, like updating the records. Okay. Then suppose if this particular person has been unfortunately died. So if you don't want to keep the person who are no more in your database, you can simply delete this particular record. So I'm deleting as of now here. So this record is no more. So this is nothing but you can able to even perform deleting a record from your database. So these are few operations that you can perform using your SQL on the database. Creating the table, modifying the table, we have been inserted the records, updated the records, even deleted the records. Okay. So that is the definition about. So we have been just until now we are just discussing can perform writing down the queries and all. We will discuss in the upcoming classes. That is all about our course. How you can do all of these things that I have been shown now using SQL, how you can do that we will discuss now in the upcoming classes. Fine. So now let's move on to the next thing. So I told the data that we are going to deal is in the form of tabular format. Is there any possibility that you can get the data apart from this tabular format? Suppose I wanted to store the data. Can I store in any other way apart from storing the data in this kind of tabular format? Is there any other ways present? Any guess?
In the form of graphs, pictures.
Graphs, pictures. Okay. Anything else we have in mind? So storing the data in the tabular format, in the sense we can even store the data out of without using the table format as well. So I will tell you those examples. We can store in the form of document format, right? JSON format is there. We have in the graphical structure is there, but not the pictures and all. But even you can store your data in the form of pictures, but that is a different kind of thing. But I mean to say here, you can store your data in the tabular format or else in the non-tabular format as well. So in that manner, we have two database management systems. Okay, we have two different database management systems. We usually use RDBMS. Okay, we usually use RDBMS, which stands for Relational Database Management System. Relational Database Management System. Relational Database Management System, and we also have non-relational. So which means we have two types. Let me just write down separately. We have relational and we have non-relational as well. So these are the two types. So whatever is a relational, we use relational database management system. For this non-relational, we call it as non-relational database management system. So in our program, we are going to focus upon this RDBMS, which is relational. Whenever I say relational, it's the meaning that your data will be stored in the form of a tabular format, which is going to have in the form of rows and columns. Okay, this is nothing but your relational. Why I'm saying relational and all, because in a database you can have multiple tables. To one and other table you can have a relationship existing between them. So all of those things we will be going to include. So relational database management system. So relational database management, in the sense the data you can store in the form of the relational database management system, the data you can store in the form of a tabular format, which is going to have both rows and columns. So that is the meaning of relational. So in the non-relational, you don't have this kind of, you will be going to store the data in terms of some document structure or JSON format. So in the JSON format, where you have some data like this, suppose the same other story, So Other number, some random number you can write, comma, then you will write down the name, suppose AST, and then what is the next column here I have written, date of birth and email ID. So random data, uh, and then email ID, ast@gmail.com, and then we have mobile number, that is phone number, something we have given, some phone number, and then address also we have been added, something. So this is one kind of an way to store the data. So this is how you can even store the data. These like this different ways are there. So all of these will come under non-relational, which means there isn't any relationship existing between any of your tables. So this is how you have two different database management systems. One is relational and next one is non-relational. So all of these will come under the database management systems. So you can have this with the different kind of languages. So once when you can use SQL, or else you can also use NoSQL. So this will be used with SQL and this will be used with NoSQL. This will be used with NoSQL. So we are going to focus on SQL for our relational database management system. Fine. So these are the few details regarding our SQL. So in the NoSQL, we usually have few languages like MongoDB. These are some of the famous MongoDB. We have CouchDB. We have Redis. We have HBase. Okay, like this, different languages are there. Here we have also Oracle in the relational. These are the most famous, but in the NoSQL there are so many will be there like this. Okay, so like this, so many will be there. This is about how the databases are present and how it is being stored. So does anyone have any doubts until now? Anybody any doubts?
No. Sir, what is
Okay.
a SQL server then?
See, we usually call it as MySQL server or as MS SQL server. In the Microsoft, we have one that is Microsoft SQL server we call. So these are all different kind of database management systems, just like our MySQL. Microsoft SQL server is there. We also call it as MSSS. Okay, that is also one kind of an you are just like how MySQL is, just like that. Your Microsoft SQL server is also in the same. In that, we will store our data, and upon that, you will write on our SQL the language to get the data, means to analyze it.
So
Hope you
SQL
got
will be
it, your
same for
answer.
both MySQL and SQL server, sir?
Yes, exactly, correct.
Okay, sir.
So one more difference is there, which I wanted to tell you for relational and non-relational. So I hope you got few differences. For relational, we store the data in the form of tabular. In the non-relational, we can store it in the form of document-based structure like this, and that can be one difference. We will use SQL as a language in the relational database. We use NoSQL or else not only SQL. We also call it as not only SQL. Not only SQL also we usually call. So we'll use SQL in the relational, NoSQL in the non-relational, and few examples we have seen. You can also include the PostgreSQL here, or else PLSQL also we call for this. Okay? PLSQL, PostgreSQL, normal SQL, Oracle, every kind of thing. Once you can learn this SQL, remaining everything is same. But here it is not like that. MongoDB will be separate, CouchDB will be separate, HBase will be separately it will be there. But here in the relational, once you can learn this SQL, remaining everything will be almost 90% of the times it would be same. Okay, so one more difference I wanted to share between relational and non-relational is your relational database is having the schema as fixed. Okay, in the relational database your schema is fixed. So that point let me write down here. Okay, schema is fixed in the relational database management system, whereas in the non-relational your schema is dynamic. Okay, your schema is dynamic. Now you need to understand what is this schema. What is a schema? So schema is nothing but it is a blueprint for your tables to be arranged in a database. So just like for an construction of anything, you will have one blueprint of how to construct, where to what to place in which place, like that. In the similar manner, whenever you are dealing with the most of the times in the relational database management system, we will have multiple tables. So how to relate between the tables, what is the kind of relationship existing between the tables will all be shown in a one kind of a blueprint or in a kind of a structure. That structure we call it as a schema. Okay, so this term you will be going to hear it with so many times. So there are different kind of schemas are also available. All of those I will show you. So as of now, what is meant by schema? Schema is nothing but the blueprint of the table's structure, or else which is going to show the relationship between the tables, in which we can also know the what are the kind of columns or fields present in that each and every table. Like that also kind of information you can let to know about the relational, sorry, in the schemas. Okay, so overall, the difference between with regards to the schema is your relational will have the schema as fixed. Once it is fixed means once you define that you can't able to make the changes to your schema. That is the meaning of schema is fixed. Whereas in the non-relational, your schema is dynamic. As I mentioned, for one record you can store all these details. For the other record, you can just ignore the date of birth also. Still it is going to take your data and store it. But in the relational, definitely you need to have this column. Even though you are not entering the data, the column name needs to be there. But in the non-relational, even though you are not going to enter this entire column, there is no problem. So that is the reason why we call it as dynamic. So schema is going to be dynamic for your non-relational. It is going to be fixed for relational. So this is the differences that you can understand between relational and non-relational. So these are all pure basics. Before we go ahead and learn our SQL, we need to understand what is this SQL, from where we are getting this SQL, not just writing down the queries only. We need to understand the background of SQL first. Then only you can able to understand the essence of SQL, why you are using that, where you are using that and all. Okay. So we will stop the class for today up to here. Okay. I think so many details has been provided. As it is the first class, we'll stop up to here. Okay.